Today's gospel passage, St. Mark's Gospel, chapter 9, 33 to 41, reminds me of two saints whose feast day is coming on July 15th. Do you know whose saints are remembered on July 15th? Anyone have an idea? Yeah, say it. Yeah, St. Kuriakose and St. Yulitti. St. Kuriakose and St. Yulitti, right? Now, I have to be thankful to seminarian Joel Kurian, because he reminded us this story during the family and youth conference this past week, and it stuck with me the way he had told it. And I want you to remember this story as well. So we, in the gospel here passage today, Jesus talks about this little child, and that if you receive a little child, then you receive him. And the thing is, Kuriakose is a small child. He's 3 years old. He is the youngest saint, one of the youngest saints, martyrs of the church. He's the youngest martyr of the church. And the thing is, his mother, St. Yulitti, they were both living in the 3rd century, during the time of the great persecution of Diocletian, Emperor Diocletian. And they're venerated in the Orthodox Church as models of unwavering faith. What happened was, after Yulitti's husband passed away, she and her young son, Kuriakose, traveled to find a new safe home. They were Christians. And so they were looking for a new safe home because Diocletian was persecuting all the Christians. And so they came to Tarsus. And when they came to Tarsus, the governor of Tarsus was much like Diocletian. His name was Alexandros. Alexandros did not like Christians. And so when he found out, when Yulitti and Kuriakose were discovered to be Christians, he took them and tried to force them to abandon their Christian faith. Now, Alexandros asked Yulitti, sacrifice to the idols, and if you do, then I'm going to release your 3-year-old son. St. Yulitti replied that even a child like my son would not accept this offer. So then Alexandros took Kuriakose, the little small boy, in the opposite way that Jesus is saying. He takes him and he tries to force the child to worship idols. And St. Kuriakose, 3-year-old boy, he says this is written down. Your idols are made of stone and wood. My God is real, is Jesus Christ. And so then, the story goes that St. Yulitti, being encouraged by her son, saying, I am a Christian. I am a Christian. They're chanting, I am a Christian. Alexandros becomes enraged, takes the 3-year-old boy and throws him. He hits his head on a step and dies. Take a moment and think about how his mother, Yulitti, would feel at that moment. And then realize that, according to the records, St. Yulitti saw this and she prayed, thank you, my Lord, because you considered Kuriakose worthy of receiving the glorious crown. I ask you now, my Savior, to take me also. So she, enraged, she kept continuing, repeating, I am a Christian. I am a Christian. And Alexandros had her beheaded and she was martyred. This is a tough story. I mean, it's a sad story because we don't like to hear of a death of a 3-year-old. But it's a story of faith and resiliency. It's a story that reminds us that even at the death of a 3-year-old, we know that he is with Christ, that he attains the salvation, and that his death is only the beginning of something much more glorious. But it's unfair, right? It's unfair. Yulitti is unfairly being persecuted. Her and her son, they go through all this trial and tribulation. None of us want to go through this. St. Yulitti goes, gets, arrested, goes through all this torture and abuse, and her son separated from her. But she never gave in. Even when she saw her son die, she was not discouraged from her faith. And from her story, as well as the witness of countless other martyrs of the church, is the lesson for us not to be discouraged or deterred by external tribulations that we face. Are we as resilient as these saints of the church? Sometimes some mornings I go to pick up some Dunkin' Donuts or some McDonald's on the workday, and I'll pick up 2 cups of coffee, and Vince Gutchman and I will both be working from home, and I'll pick up 2 cups of coffee. And there's one morning I remember I put 1 cup, I had to open the garage door, and I had to put 1 cup of coffee on top of the other to open, and then use my other hand to open the door. And when I did that, what happened? The 1 cup of coffee fell. You know what I felt like? What a terrible day it is. And I felt so discouraged and so deterred. I tell you this simple story because I think most of us are like this. That when a small problem happens in our life, we feel like the world is against us. We want to crawl back into bed and say, oh man, my life is so difficult. And we don't realize that what we have inherited in faith is a faith that calls us to be strong. That the problems of this world, and it could be more than coffee spilling. It could be, literally milk spilling. It could be more than that. It could be the fact that we lose our job. It could be that, we get into a fight with each other. It could be that we get into a car accident. It could be all these different issues that we can get into. And yet when those problems happen, are we as strong as the saints of the church? Are we as resilient? We become stressed about small things and we can't even function. When I'm stressed about something and one of my children comes to me and asks me something, it's very hard for me to focus on that. I'm like, no, I'm stressed, But the thing is, as a Christian, nothing should stress us to that point. Because we should have a hope and a love that makes us present in every moment. True Christians, the ones that we are called to model, they face so much difficulty. And this is the key term, key phrase I want you to remember. Regardless of the external issues, it never changed the focus of their heart. Shouldn't we live like this? Shouldn't we all be stronger in the face of problems? Don't you all want to allow external problems to not dictate your internal well-being? St. Paul captures this in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 when he says, we are experiencing trouble on every side, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but not driven to despair. We are persecuted, but not abandoned. We are knocked down, but not destroyed. St. Paul is reminding us in the same way of St. Kuriakose and St. Yulitti as they're proclaiming, I am a Christian, that we have to have internal strength that is not based on external factors. Jesus teaches us this in Matthew chapter 7. He says, everyone who hears these words of mine and does them is like a wise man who builds his house on the rock. What happens if you build your house on the rock? Jesus explains, the rains fell, the floods came, the winds beat against the house, but did it collapse? Did it collapse? No, it did not collapse because it was built on the rock. But then those who hear, who don't listen, who don't heed, who don't follow Christ, they are like a foolish man who builds his house on the sand. And when the rains fell and the floods came and the winds beat on that house, what happened to that house? It collapsed. It was utterly destroyed. We need to be built on the rock, so that no matter what storm happens in our life, we are able to overcome it. If you want to be a real follower of Jesus Christ, you need to do what he has taught us. And so I'll encourage you. Jesus says this term. He says, everyone who hears these words of mine, What words of his? This happens in Matthew chapter 7. What happens before Matthew chapter 7? What important sermon does he give? He gives the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew chapter 5, 6, and finally in 7. And he says, those who listen to these words, Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, they are the ones that build their house on the rock. They are the ones that, if they heed these words of this passage, the question is, how many of us know what is in Matthew chapter 5 and in chapter 6, in chapter 7? So here is the homework. I know it's not school time, but here is the homework for all of us to read Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. To always have that as in our hearts, knowing to follow those commandments, because then we will build our house on the rock. And if you do as he has told us, he promises, well, let's say it this way. He does not promise that our life will get easier. Rather, he promises that the burden, as it says on this, come to me all who labor and are heavy laden, and what? I will give you rest. Because the burden on those who are followers of him, he promises not that the problems won't come, but they will be lighter. The promise is his promise is that when the problems come, you will find a deeper strength, an internal strength. So if you want that strength, listen to Christ. Read his scriptures. Understand him. Understand his words. Pray to him. Live like him. Now I leave you, I know I've given you a lot here, but I give you with one more homework, because there's another really good passage to think about and reflect on. One scriptural reference from the Old Testament. One that you probably never heard an Achin give a message on. The book of Habakkuk. Habakkuk. Kids have heard the book Habakkuk? It's only 3 chapters. You can literally go home today and make some chaya and sit and read all 3 chapters in one sitting. And you'll be blessed by it. 3 chapters. Chapter 1, Habakkuk, the prophet. He basically asks God, why do bad things happen? Why does God allow injustice? Chapter 2, God responds. He gives a good explanation. And in that he says, the just shall live by faith. We are called to live by faith, knowing that God is just. And chapter 3, Habakkuk understands and says this, though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruits be on the vines, the produce of the olives fall, and the fields yield no food. The flocks be cut off from the fold, and there be no herds in the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God the Lord is my strength. Habakkuk says, even if the famine comes and we have no food, no livelihood, we have nothing, I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God the Lord is my strength. This is what St. Yulitti did when she saw her son die. Examine yourself. We all are called to examine ourselves. Is God our strength? Or do we become upset and angry at every little thing that happens? Is your peace and joy coming from what's going on around you? Or is your peace and joy found inside you? If you want it to be inside you, if you want that joy to be based on the rock, on Christ, follow Christ and find true strength. All glory and honor to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.